Wisconsin football 2026 preview. What does 2026 have in store for the Badgers? Luke Fickell, Colton Joseph, and everything he has to be playing with this season with the offense, and another year where I think the defense is going to be pretty reliable under good old Mike Tressel. Let's go ahead and get into it with Zach Guggenheim here on the Big Ten Huddle presented by FanDuel. Zach, looking at this season for Wisconsin, there's a lot going into it. You have new quarterback Colton Joseph. You have Luke Fickell on year 4. A lot of people are very confident about the Badgers. When I say a lot of people, I mean the Badger fans are confident in the Badgers, but the national sentiment seems to be that Luke Fickell might be on his last year here if the team doesn't at least go bowling. Zach, what are some of the main storylines you are looking at for the Wisconsin Badgers in 2026?
First of all, do I qualify as some of the national folk?
I didn't want to call you out right at the beginning of the show, so
fire Luke Fickell. He's done. He's
Okay.
I got it out. I actually, Badger fans, I might be more positive than you expect in this preview. I like, to me, I don't know if this is the biggest storyline, but to me, the season hangs on the health of the team. That has been the biggest determining factor, is not just the injuries, but their lack of preparedness to have depth behind those that they were counting on. You can say what you want about quarterback injuries and whatnot. The fact that they didn't have people ready to go the past several years, that is something about coaching and being prepared. But there is a part of it too where it's like, it's kind of the luck of the draw at this point, because they have been so injured for the past several years. The offensive line was so injured last year, right? You had your center Renfro. He only started 3 games. So to me, I want to see a Wisconsin Badgers team that's healthy most of the season. And to me, I think that might actually be the key between whether Wisconsin has a successful season or not.
I don't. The quarterback injury thing is so hard because I truly think that any team that has had the quarterback luck of Wisconsin the past few years would be in a very similar boat. Now, maybe a few more wins or something like that, but also Luke Fickell is, he was trying to go to more, not exactly an air raid, but, kind of air raid-esque a little bit and kind of bring the new offense of the age into Wisconsin a little bit more. That didn't work out. Now he's going back to a little bit more of the old school type of offense that Wisconsin has known, power run game, using the tight ends, things like that, which is great. And I think you have the quarterback in Colton Joseph who can make that happen. You just have to keep him upright in the entire season. And it just makes me nervous to have another quarterback who is a running threat, possibly, not make it through the entire season. But we saw how well Wisconsin's offense was able to move the ball compared to other times when they had Carter Smith in there, who was more of a running threat. So you add that, it still wasn't the best offense in the world, obviously, but you add that dimension to the offense and immediately it makes it more dangerous. It makes it something else that the defense has to account for. And that is going to ultimately bring you more opportunities to score, whether it's with your receivers, your running backs, your quarterbacks, whatever it might be. So for Wisconsin, I love the direction they're going. To me, it's just like, just keep Colton Joseph upright. Just keep him healthy. And I'm sure Luke Fickell is doing everything he possibly can to be be careful with him. Obviously, Billy Edwards, Tanner Mordecai, Tyler Van Dyke, like these were difficult scenarios for them. On the defensive side of the ball, Tressel has done a great job the past few years considering what the offense has been. I know the defense hasn't always had the best numbers, but you and I last year were pointing out, look guys, the Wisconsin defense is not bad. They have a rather good defensive line. They have some really good linebackers, especially this season with some of the young linebackers who played well last year. Catalona, Mason Posa, guys like that. Like these are good linebackers, and I think they'll have another good defensive line this season. They just have to have the offense to support them. We'll see what it looks like. Any other storylines before we get into the offense, Zach?
I think the storyline of the Wisconsin fans coming after you for not having Mason Posa on the top 100 players of the Big Ten. I think that's a storyline.
Yes. In my defense, and I said this, I wanted more production to be in there. That was it. He played 4 games last season, which were really good, but it was only 4 games. I am fully ready to put him on the top 100 players list at the end of the season. In fact, I do think he will be there, and I do think he will probably be an all Big Ten player. But it was not a projection. It was not a projection. It was trying to figure out where the players are at right now. Okay, I'm done defending myself. Let's get into the offense. Zach, so if you don't know how this works, we go through the offense, we give our most confident position group, our least confident position group, do the same thing with the defense, and then we get to the schedule here in the middle, kind of do our floor and ceiling records, and then kind of give a rough estimate of kind of where we think the record will be. Zach, when you look at the offense, where are you most comfortable with this Wisconsin team?
Uh, you know, it's this is the entire offense is kind of my question mark. I'm honestly, I might say quarterback because I'm not sold on no, I'll go offensive line. I'll go
Okay.
offensive line. Um, Quarterback, I am more confident in because you have another year of experience with Danny O'Brien and Carter Smith. You have Deuce Adams coming over from Louisville. I think your room is much better than it's been in the past. Um, so if Colton Joseph does go down, I'm a little bit more confident in that. I do think, the offensive line, you have Kowicki coming in from Oklahoma State who had 11 starts last year. Coverly at that guard spot, played a lot last year. Mandel coming in at that left guard spot, had 12 starts last year. So your interior offensive line has a lot of experience. I think my questions are the outside tackles, but I'm more high on them than I think I am in the skill positions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear that. Kevin Haywood is injured again. Haywood missed the entire 2025 season with tearing his ACL. Now he's dealing with a lower body injury and has missed recent practices. So Fickell characterized him as day to day. There's no out for the season here or anything like that, at least that we've heard of yet. So right now, August 16th sounds like he is kind of day to day. We'll see where that goes. I'm feeling good about the offensive line too. I'm gonna go with the running back though as who I'm most confident. Then you got Abusama, Dupree, Jackson, some other additional depth there. There may not be like a dominant star in this group. You don't have Jonathan Taylor here or anybody like that, obviously, but I do think that there is a lot to look at in terms of potential production. There's enough different skill sets that Wisconsin should be able to build more than a functional run game when you consider Colton Joseph and what he's going to be able to do. I expect a lot of read option. I expect a lot of opportunities for Colton Joseph to run it as well as the running backs. And if these running backs can go out and they can block and be lead blockers for Colton Joseph, I love that even more. So I'm looking at this Wisconsin team this year and saying, have a good run game, support your defense, and you can be looking at Wisconsin getting more wins than I think people are expecting.
Yeah. My only pushback to that, I think the potential's there. I'm just concerned that they're not gonna have that guy,
Mm-hmm.
which I think has been, if you look at Wisconsin teams in the past, you always had at least one guy who you're like, oh dang, they have him. I think Sama's good, but last year he only had 2 starts, only had, I think, 146 carries, 145 carries, something like that at Iowa State. Stiffer competition, although their schedule in the Big Ten is not nearly as daunting as it's been in the past. Darian Dupree, again, he averaged 4.4 yards per carry last season. The offense was anemic, so I don't think that's all Dupree's fault. I'm a little concerned. I agree with you that the potential's there. I'm just, similar to what you said about Posa with production, I'm concerned about maybe the relative lack of production.
Mm-hmm. Where's your least confident group?
I think I'm probably in between tight end and wide receiver. I'll go tight end mostly because I think the tight end position is probably more important to their success to keep Luke Fickell's job.
Mm-hmm.
If you want the run game to go well, you need your tight ends to block well.
Mm-hmm.
And and you need to give your quarterback time to throw as well as open up running lanes for your quarterback. So I think the tight end, being an extension of that offensive line, to me, that's probably where I would go.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm gonna go wide receiver here. Hilton, like Eugene Hilton's emergence is encouraging to me, but he still was not really a factor last season. What did he have? I think he had less than 100 yards receiving
91 yards.
last season, 91 yards receiving, only like 8 catches, I think it was, if I'm remembering correctly. Um, None of their returning receivers, I think, had over 125 yards last season. So there's just not a lot of production to look at there. And plus, like, this guy's bounced around the Big Ten quite a bit, and he just never seems to make an impact anywhere he goes. So I don't know if it's something in his work ethic. I don't know if it's something in him personally. I don't know. He seems to have talent because teams keep bringing him in,
Who
but
is this?
Malachi Coleman.
Oh, Malachi Coleman.
Yeah, at Nebraska, was at Minnesota, I believe it was, last season. Now he's here at Wisconsin, and I think they're gonna be relying on him to, catch some balls this season, and when he's not really made a name for himself or made a role for himself anywhere he's been. Obviously, receivers can get better and everything else, but it does give me some concern there. So, I'm gonna say
Yeah.
least confident in wide receivers, not because I think they're gonna be bad, but just I don't see the production to give me a ton of confidence going into the season.
Yeah. If you want, I'll say this. I think they can get production in the running game because they'll have read option in there with Joseph, but you really do need someone to threaten taking the top off the defense. And I think you're right. I honestly, that tight end wide receiver combo to me is just, there's a lot of questions there. And I think
Mhm.
especially with, they don't have a ton of like high profile games, but against a Notre Dame, against a USC, against a Penn State where you have higher athleticism, you got to have somebody who can take the top off the defense.
Mhm. It's gonna be important for them to try to discover this year. We'll see if they can. All right, moving over to the defense. Let's go with most confident here. I'll go first, Zach, since I had you go first on offense. I'm gonna go with linebacker. I think that's no secret. After I mentioned there at the
Mm,
beginning, Mason Posa, Cooper Catalano, they might be one of the better, just linebacker groups in general in the Big Ten this year with what they kind of did in some short time last season. What Mason Posa did in short time last season, but if they're able to bring that into this season, I think this is legitimately, has potential to be one of the best groups in the Big Ten and might be getting some recognition nationally if Wisconsin has a good enough record for that. So there's legitimate depth behind them as well, and if Wisconsin's defense is good again, I expect these two guys to be a huge reason for why that is.
yeah. Yeah. I think the linebackers are really solid. I'll go one other position is the safeties.
Mm.
They lose Preston Zeckman, but Matthew Jung, NFL caliber safety. And I think Marvin Burks coming in from Mizzou, I think he brings a lot of veteran leadership. Both are seniors, which is what you love in that back end is guys that are going to know the system and not have blown coverages. So I think they're skilled, they're experienced. That's a really good position group for them.
Let's go with least confident now. I'm going to go with cornerback here as my least confident. This is kind of like excluding Javon Robinson. Javon Robinson started for Arizona State last season. He had 34 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, and 8 pass breakups. I think he only had missed 2 tackles all season, according to PFF, if I'm remembering that correctly. So he looks like Wisconsin's clear cornerback one. I have no problem with Robinson at all. I just look kind of behind it and say, okay, who's there behind it, right? You have Jameer Scott, who's battling right now, Bryce West, Eric Fletcher Jr., Kai Bates, Rafael Dunn there. And I'll be honest, like I've not seen a ton of these guys to really feel super confident in them. And when, we're not really hearing about any emergence or anything. Now, maybe there's something on like the 24/7 or on 3 board or something like that that I don't know about. But as of right now, I'm not really seeing anybody kind of emerge and take that spot. If Bryce West was, I'd feel really good about that. But Bryce West he wasn't really on the field all that much for Ohio State. Same thing with Aaron Scott. Aaron Scott looks like he's probably not gonna play all that much at Oregon this season. Was there a reason he left Ohio State? Because maybe he couldn't get time? Bryce West, could he be the same thing? I'm not sure. I'm not gonna say that I think they're gonna be bad by any means. I just don't know, and I don't feel super confident in what I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. And particularly I think it's the corner spot and the nickelback spot. Like
Mhm,
I think Javon Robinson's got that one spot nailed down, and there's just not a lot we know.
mhm.
I think there's potential, as you were saying, but you don't really want just potential at corner, especially when you've got some pretty explosive wide receivers that you're gonna have to deal with on your schedule.
Yeah, I mean, there's potential there. I think they have a good amount of athleticism. Like some of these guys, their numbers in high school and stuff, like they were coming out. Like Bryce West is a 4-star recruit. You got some good recruits here, kind of competing for that cornerback two and nickelback spot. But athleticism doesn't always mean you have a nose for the ball to be able to bat it out of somebody's hands or get an interception. Sometimes it does, but not always. So I just need to see it before I feel very confident in it. All right. Anything else on offense or defense before we move on to the schedule, Zach?
One thing to note, I think the defensive line, they lose some experience, but a lot of seniors and a lot of beef, which is, I mean, common for Wisconsin, but I think it's just, I think anybody who's sitting there like Wisconsin's lost a lot of experience, I think they're going to be okay up front.
Hmm.
I think they're going to be formidable up front. Maybe not the best defensive line in the conference, but I do think this is a good defensive line with a lot of bodies. And I think that bodes well for the Badgers.
Yeah, I'm not sure it'll be what it was last season, but and I'm like I said, I'm not sure. I'm not saying it won't be. I'm not sure it'll be what it was last season, but at the same time, Tressel has done a good job with the defensive line, even when they've not had the most talented players there. So that's an area that I feel pretty confident in with him, and I think he's going to do a good job. All right, let's move on to the schedule here. Zach, Wisconsin starts it out with a neutral site game. The game's in Lambeau Field against Notre Dame. It is technically neutral site, so kind of feels like a Georgia neutral site game when they play in the Georgia Dome. But then they have Western Illinois, Eastern Michigan at Penn State, Michigan State. The bye, and I do think that bye is very important there. We've noted that multiple times. And then at UCLA, against USC, at Iowa, Rutgers, at Maryland, at Purdue, and then you finish it off with home against Minnesota. Zach, when you look at this schedule for Wisconsin, this is not the most difficult schedule in the Big Ten. I would probably put this behind, maybe Penn State for most favorable schedule in the Big Ten after the gauntlet that Wisconsin had last season. They've been given a much more favorable schedule this year. Now you still have Notre Dame, USC, Penn State, Iowa on here, so favorable in the Big Ten is not what it used to be, but this is a schedule that's manageable for Wisconsin to get to a bowl game.
Yeah. Only 4 top 25 teams, according to
Hmm.
Coach's Poll. Only
Hmm.
4.
What was it last year? Like 7 or 8?
It was a lot.
Yeah,
It was a lot. We're just infinity. That's how
yeah,
many it was.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, and yeah, I think that bye is kind of a point of demarcation. Does Fickell prove himself and acquit himself well? Because I do think that's important here. Like if Fickell is able to survive, say they go 3-2 or even 4-1 in that first 5-game stretch, I think that gives not just Coach Fickell but this team a lot of confidence going into the meat of their Big Ten schedule. And dare I say, they could even be a dark horse to be in the Big Ten championship game.
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, the schedule does allow them for that, but it is still tough to play at Iowa. I do think at UCLA is going to be tougher than, it has been in the past. And there is a very real potential. I'm not predicting it'll happen, but there is a very real potential for Wisconsin to start the season 2-3 going into their bye week. And
Yes.
if they're 2-3 and their last loss is to Michigan State right before the bye week, especially Michigan State at home, Saw what happened when Maryland won at home or at Wisconsin last season. Don't think the fans are going to be too excited if that happens.
Well, yeah, yeah. My question is not whether they could do it if they go 2-3 in the first 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
2-3 means Fickell's gone. And he should be.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you have a pretty tough stretch after that. Um, it really is the hardest thing for Wisconsin, right? You have a pretty favorable schedule, but your 2 toughest games, most likely, are in your first 4 games, and they just so happen to be your first 2 Power 4 opponents. And then after that, I mean, you get at UCLA, but that's not really a break. Ask Penn State what it's like to go to at UCLA after playing a big game. And then you have USC at Iowa. Like, I mean, I'm not going to say that it's a bad schedule or anything like that. Obviously, it's one of the more favorable ones in the Big Ten. But if Luke Fickell is going to get to a bowl game, he's going to probably win 3 or 4 of his last 4 games there. And that's going to be a huge reason why.
Yeah. The one, if I can just go back, I know you're not on this, you're not on this island, and I'm not sure I'm on here either, but I just want to paint a picture.
Okay.
Wisconsin, for the first time in years, is a run first offense with a run threat at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Good, at least good interior offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
I think that travels a lot better on the road.
That's true. That's true.
Than a quarterback. We won't call it the air raid. We'll call it the trying to fly Badger offense. That's what we'll call it.
Okay.
Attempted flight Badger offense, and they travel like it's going to travel better. Defense always travels. They have been tough both at home and on the road, even
They have.
if they're losing seasons, and so. Again, this is not my projection. I'm not saying they're going to make the Big Ten championship game. Badger fans don't hang banners. Okay. That's not what I'm saying. But there is no team on this schedule outside of Notre Dame where I look at it and say, Wisconsin can't win that game. And just case in point, they beat Washington last year. They beat Illinois last year, and they did it with Carter Smith, who is not Colton Joseph. So I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not picking it, but is there a chance that because of the way that they're altering their team, they actually could have a magical season?
So is your say high floor or ceiling record for them 10-2?
I think it could be.
Okay.
Now, I think their floor is really low, too, so we'll talk about
I was going to say,
but
I think this is the largest variance of floor and ceiling in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I think we said that with UCLA. After looking at the schedule and looking a little bit deeper into the team, I think this is your highest variance. I think Wisconsin could be as bad as 4-8.
Yeah.
I think they could be as good as 9-3. I'm not going to do 10-2, but I will say 9-3. I think is their ceiling, and that is a pretty high variance there, especially with a team who has a win total on FanDuel of 6.5, and they are favored to go over the 6.5 more than they are to go under the 6.5. So, it's not crazy what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, what they do in the first 5 weeks is going to set the tone for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So if they go 2-3, who knows what happens at that point?
What would you say the floor record is?
If they go 2-3 in those first 5 games?
Sure.
3-9?
I don't know. You think they only beat one of Rutgers at Maryland and at Purdue?
If they fire Fickell and the wheels fall off, then that's a lot of ifs. I think if it's normal, like things are kind of like probably 4-8, 5-7, something like that. But I think if the wheels fall off, I think all bets are off.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. There you go. Wisconsin preview for 2026. Oh, record. What's your record you're looking at, kinda
Um,
rough record before you hear Zach?
I'm on record saying that I think Fickell gets fired before
Well, you just
the
said that was a bold prediction. You
bold
didn't say that
prediction.
was, like, your
I the more I am looking see, this is what Wisconsin does to me every year, is I'm like, "Maybe they'll be better this year." No, that's not true. That's not true because their schedule has been insane the past 2 years. I've
I'm
been
say
coming in
that's
saying some
Nebraska for me.
yeah, sorry. No, that's I'm this is fake news. I have been harsh on Wisconsin the past couple of years. I'm gonna go against my bold prediction here. I'm gonna say I'm gonna say 7-5.
Alright. 7-5 is what I have as well. I think, losses are to most likely Notre Dame, Penn State, USC, Iowa, and then I think there's probably a loss to either at UCLA or Minnesota there, and then I do truly think they get Western Illinois, Eastern Michigan, Rutgers, Maryland, Purdue, and then, they get either one or both of UCLA and Minnesota.
Yeah.
So,
All right, 7-5.
there we go. There we go.
Progress. Progress.
Progress. Oh, and Michigan State. I do think they get Michigan State, but that is not a guarantee at all, especially when you look at the Michigan State schedule. We don't normally do this, but I'm just going to look at it really fast. Michigan State is going to have Toledo, Eastern Michigan, Notre Dame, Nebraska. So they could be 2-2 as well, which could be a very pivotal point for Pat Fitzgerald and his team too. So, underrated game is October 3rd, Wisconsin and Michigan State. That should be more of a highlighted game than some people are going to give it credit for.
Yep. Agreed.
All
Agreed.
right, everybody.
Agreed.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Check out our other season previews we have. We are almost all the way done. After this, we have Michigan State, Northwestern, Purdue, Oregon. So we only have 4 more left. We appreciate you watching and keep visiting the playlist for the other ones as they come out. And let us know. We honestly people who watch these are going to determine how many videos we make of certain teams throughout the season. So if we get a good amount of views on this Wisconsin one, we're going to keep making videos about Wisconsin. If we get a good amount of views on an Oregon one, we're going to keep making videos about Oregon. Just kind of depends. And watch rate, all that stuff. I pay attention to all of those analytics. So appreciate you being here. Thanks for listening and watching. We'll see you next time. Have a good one.